Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Sharon Cook. I am the host of the ProcureSmart podcast. And today we are talking to the amazing Bruce Jordan. Bruce Jordan was one of the top 25 social media influencers in hospitality in 2021. He is the host of the hotel show, Hotel Management Do's and Don't. He's a hotel consultant, managing partner at Hotel Guest Management. He specializes in revenue generation, front desk sales training, hotel digital marketing, guest satisfaction, reviews, hotel cost reduction, and a mystery guest shopper. We have a lot to talk about. How are you, Bruce?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Anytime. You've been having a fun week.
I have. I've had kind of a crazy week, but I appreciate you bouncing back with me. All right. Well,
I understand.
Before we talk about all these amazing things that you do, I love to ask my guests kind of a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get to this point of being top 25 social media influencer? Was this something you're like, I love podcasting, or did you grow into this?
You know, it was actually a accident. I was surveying some hotels that were in my market segment. When I always check out my competition by spending the night at their properties. Good thing, a lot of them, you know, they usually don't see me coming because I put the hotel room under somebody else's name, and I go in, I spend a night, I take a look around and see what's working and see what's not working. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was saying, you know, we should shoot this. Like we should shoot this and make this happen. And then that's how Hotel Management Do's and Don'ts was born. And I'll never forget, it was like my old CEO at IHG, Steve Porter, was ringing in the back of my head when he had this mentorship program. And I was talking to Raul Leal. He was the CEO of Virgin Hotels at the time, and he's now the CEO of SH Hotels. And he was like, you know, you should do a show where we can just pass our knowledge along to everybody versus just being within our company. Mm-hmm. So, and I always wanted to do that show. I always wanted to create a platform where leaders can teach leaders. And so just like that, we did True Hotel Leaders, and he was the first guest on the show. And to this day, his show is the highest ranking episode on our series.
That's amazing. I love that. Now talk to me a little bit. As part of what you do, you go into hotels and you look and see what they're doing well and what they're not doing well, right?
Correct. And most of the stuff is really, they don't know how to capture the revenue and keep the revenue in house. There is no class for that. There's no revenue mastering class or anything like that. When most people think of revenue, they think of either sales or revenue management, and marketing is a very small piece of that. So a lot of sales and marketer directors, they have about 99% sales experience and 1% marketing experience.
So is there something that still to this day surprises you? I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm sick of talking about the pandemic, but you know, it was a life-changing for hospitality. Is there something when you go in today that you're surprised it still happens, that you're like, that's old school?
You know what? Surprisingly, what surprises me the most is that a lot of hotels don't realize that most customers see their hotel digitally before they see them up front and in person. Even at walking, like you'll have people in the parking lot looking at the hotel just to make sure they want to stay there before they even check in and make the reservation. That was just always was mind-boggling to me. And what still surprises me is that the digital presence of 90% of the hotels out there is so weak, and it suffers so bad that's a lot of time that's really the main cause of a lot of their issues, is their digital presence.
And I get that because, you know, I'm one of those people that check out the pictures, and I get so frustrated when you want to book a hotel because it's in a good area, but they don't have enough pictures on their website for me to figure out, is it a hotel that I want to stay in?
Exactly. Then they don't have any videos, they don't have any testimony, they don't have anything. You can't even research them on YouTube. You can't do anything, and the pictures look horrible. So you're like, I don't think this isn't the place I want to stay. Versus the property that has 50 pictures, they have video, they have testimony, they have everything else. So a lot of times those are the people that end up getting the business.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, we're going to talk today about some things that you're really passionate about. And the first one is talking about food shortages in hospitality. Now, I talked to a chef about 4 months ago who had a lot to say about this. He was in Canada and they were experiencing extreme supply chain issues. So I'd like to hear what your take on this is.
Man, people they don't realize what's coming until it comes. A lot of people think it's just fantasy or conspiracy theory, but within the last couple of months, you didn't had about 20 to 25 major food packaging plants burned down or destroyed or shut down. And you talk about a $1 billion businesses just shut down or destroyed. There was one farm, they produced eggs. They produced about 1 million eggs a day, and their facility got burned down accidentally. There's a lot of accidents. Like after the 20th time, I'm like, man,
Right.
who's in control of the candles out there?
Yeah.
What is going on? So yeah, it's about to come full circle in another 4 to 6 months.
So you feel like what we're looking at now is just kind of the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see food prices skyrocket. The best investment anyone can make in the hotel industry, especially if they want to see a huge return, is buy all the food they can right now and store it. Rice, eggs, freeze the eggs, keep the eggs in the freezer, whatever you can do, get it, store it, and just keep it, because your prices are going to double or triple within the next 4 to 6 months.
And do you see a solution out there? Are there steps in place to, like, say, once we ride this wave, is it going to get better? Is this I heard, and the reason I ask is I heard somebody say, this is, oh, I hate the term, the new normal, right? Like, get used to it. This is what's happening. But it can't be sustained forever. We just can't.
You're absolutely right. And the best thing that most hotels they can do, if it's available, is that they can start sourcing their own products locally. So the local farmer, the local dairy farmer, the local butcher, the people that actually have the farms, instead of going through a middleman or going through Cisco, try to stay local. Try to stay as local as possible, especially when it comes to things like orange juice. We're used to concentrated orange juice. It may be a better idea to serve a premium orange juice and charge a premium price and just do fresh squeeze, because especially here in Florida, I know I'm going to be able to get some oranges from somewhere.
Right. Right.
I can't say Tropicana can promise me orange juice, but I know that I could get orange juice from somewhere here in Florida.
Do you know what? Farm to table used to be this kind of niche market, but what you're saying is that's the way to go, right?
That's probably going to be the cheapest way to go when everything hits the fan. And it's scary to say that, but I mean, only thing you're going to be paying for is delivery. And if you just get your own truck and just do your own pickups, you're probably save half the price.
Wow, that's interesting. All right. Well, let's talk about a little bit along the same lines. You know a lot about talking about vendor relationships during the recession. Now, obviously, there could be some debate. Are we in a recession? But I think we all know that we are. What is your take on that, and what are some solutions?
Well, as far as the recession, I just looked at my cryptocurrency account and it's down about 60%. So that's pretty close.
Yeah, yeah.
Bitcoin is down to like 20,000. At one time, it was at 68,000. Okay, stock market definitely isn't there. Gas prices is through the roof, and I never heard anybody complain about, no matter what price it is, gas price is always too high. Like when it was 250 and went to 260, it was too high.
Right.
So it just is what it is. But this is a bit of an extreme. So yeah, I think we're definitely in a little micro recession. And the mistake that I made before about 20 years ago is that I didn't have enough vendors and I didn't have the right terms. So I had to change that up quite a bit because you're going to have to cycle out your cash flow. So you're going to need to extend those terms and you're going to need multiple vendors. So if you just have one or two vendors, that's not going to cut it. You're going to need about four or five vendors, and you're going to, instead of doing, the net 10 or net 15, get rid of anything that's COD because it's not going to happen.
Right.
It's going to kill your cash. You're going to need 30 60. You're going to need net 30 60 versus your standard 10 15. So you got to get more vendors, and you're going to have to slow down when it comes to those payments just to make sure you have the cash to make it happen.
And are you finding that vendors are more willing to work with those terms?
They're more willing to work with those terms when things are good versus when things are bad. So if you have a vendor and things are great, cash is coming in, you know, the recession hasn't hit yet, so they're like, yeah, we could do net 30, that's no problem. But when things hit the fan, they're not gonna want to do net 30 because they're
Mm,
gonna need the cash just as bad as you
right,
do.
right, right. And when you talk about having multiple vendors, which is, in my opinion, as a buyer, is always a good idea. But in this day and age, so many vendors are struggling, right? Like, how do you deal with those vendors that are cash strapped or inventory strapped? Do you hold on to them out of loyalty, or do you like, I got to move on?
I try to hold on to them out of loyalty because every business has been in a bad position at one point in time. It's just the nature of business. Everything isn't always a milk and honey. Well, when you're in business, you're gonna have your peaks and your valleys. It just is what it is. So out of loyalty, usually most vendors respect loyalty, and the ones that don't, they know that they can get cut loose very quickly. So I try to stay loyal first. But if I see that the relationship just isn't going to work out, it's definitely time to let them go. I had one incident where there was two hotels, but they were both managed by the same management company, and the hotels weren't talking to each other. So it was the same vendor, but one hotel was paying twice the price of the other hotel because one was a boutique hotel, another hotel was a franchise hotel. So once we caught it, and what happened was, executive housekeeper went on vacation, so that executive housekeeper went to the other hotel while the lady was on vacation, and that's when she caught the price difference. She was like, "What is up with these prices? You guys are paying twice the amount that I'm paying." And once we called the vendor, he adjusted the price immediately. But the damage was already done,
Hmm.
because for years we've been paying twice the amount, and you knew it was the same management company.
Who was
So,
paying the higher price, the boutique or the brand?
of course, it was the boutique. Yeah. So that was I never let that one happen again.
That's interesting. And so, what about, these vendor relationships are so critical. A good vendor relationship will carry you through a hard time. But in this day, vendors are struggling harder than normal, right? Like, so many of them closed down during COVID. Some of them have labor shortages. So many of them are struggling. I mean, just struggling across the board. So if you do have to move on, what's the best way to cut that vendor loose? You just upfront and honest with them and just say, well, we're going to look elsewhere.
Well, the first thing we need to do is have a conversation where we can sit down and talk, and don't just focus on the salesperson. You definitely want to have that relationship with the highest executive that you could get to, especially if you know that you're generating a pretty penny for that particular vendor, because the relationship just isn't about you and the salesperson. There's somebody else behind them. A lot of times I've just got a new salesperson, and the relationship mend it immediately.
Yeah.
So that's the first step that I would take is I get to the highest authoritative person I can, and I sit down with like, these are the issues that I'm having and why. And if he's not able to resolve them, then we have to move on to a different vendor and have to end that relationship.
It's such good advice. I mean, I love it when you're saying, listen, your salesperson is just your first line of defense, right? If that's not working out, you got to start climbing the ladder.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really good. And don't be afraid to go over the salesperson's head either. And don't be afraid to stop at just one rung. You just got to keep going until you get the answer.
And that's the sad part is that, it's a lot of time the sales is like a commission based business. So instead of, you get some salespeople that they value a long-term relationship. So they want to try to give you the best deal possible to keep the relationship that they have, versus the greedy salesperson that's all about trying to get the highest commission that they can get, and they can care less about you because they feel like, oh, I got a million other customers. If he don't like it, he can kick rocks. Those are two different types of salesmen, and you want the first one, not the second one.
Absolutely. Yeah, my biggest frustration comes to territory salespeople. Territory salespeople can be one of those ones, but it's like, oh, well, I'm going to get the commission no matter what. I don't really have to put the work in. They're in my territory.
Mm-hmm.
And those really make me crazy.
Yeah, that really sucks. That really sucks because those are the ones that you usually end up getting rid of first. And you end up getting a vendor, you end up replacing with a vendor that's completely out of state,
Mhm.
gotta ship everything to you, but they have a decent price and they value your business because they know they're out of state and they know that you have so many options that you don't actually need to use them.
Right. And you know what? Sometimes it's not even about price. I will pay a higher price if I don't have to fight the sales rep. If the sales rep makes the transaction so crazy, I will pay a higher price just not to deal with that.
I got burnt like that one time. From time to time, I would, like, at least once a month I spend a night in my hotel. And this particular quarter, I wasn't able to spend a night. It took me like about 2-3 months to spend a night at a property that I was at. And the salesman sold me this new soap. It was a great deal. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? That's gonna reduce my cost. Let's go ahead and roll with it. And I spend the night and I used that soap. It was like sandpaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm washing my body with sandpaper.
Yeah, but it was cheaper.
It was cheaper.
That's true. Yeah. Cheaper is not, it's a hard lesson to learn when you first enter the industry, but cheaper is not always better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about container costs because you know a little bit about this too, right? Like,
yeah.
what's happening?
Well, what's happening is that like container costs have been going through the roof. I don't know what's going on. In China, like when you used to get something shipped from China for a renovation, it was about maybe $6,000, and now it's up to 20.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've seen all the containers out there floating in California. What a lot of people have been doing, they're like, you know what? I don't want it docked in California. I just bring it through Florida because it's moving faster. The cost doesn't really go down too much, but at least you'll get it faster. And some other people, they have been they say, you know what, let's just get it from Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's faster, smoother, the cost isn't as low, but at least you're gonna get it.
It's true. One of the big things that I've heard recently is the onshore, offshore, nearshore question, right? And everyone was like, well, if we can't get it onshore, let's go nearshore. And what does nearshore look like, which is like Canada and Mexico. So I think everybody's looking at those areas now as where 10 years ago, people were like, man, we don't manufacture in Mexico.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if you purchased furniture recently, but I had to purchase some furniture, for my house. And I went to Ashley Furniture. Ashley Furniture manufactures their parts in Vietnam,
Mhm.
and they take those parts and they assemble the furniture over here in the US. And there's like a 6 to 8 month waiting list just for a couch,
Yeah,
that I like. And I'm like, I can't wait 6 to 8 months. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. And do you think this container issue will resolve itself anytime soon?
No, I don't, especially with the way inflation is, I don't see it resolving itself within the next 6 to 8 months.
So if you are a hotelier or a buyer and you know that you need furniture in 20 weeks, what's the solution? Do you order earlier or to try to find a vendor who can produce it faster? Like, what's the solution that you're seeing?
Well, the problem is that a lot of PIPs are coming due within the next 3 to 6 months. A lot of the franchises, they're not waiving the PIPs anymore. They're like, COVID's over, get over it, get your PIP done.
Yep.
So you have 3 to 6 months to either get the PIP done or to sell. So a lot of people have just been, they're like, okay, let's just put the hotel on the market and sell it. But the person that buys it, they're gonna just inherit the PIP anyway.
Right.
So the best bet is just to get the furniture ordered so you know that you're gonna have it when you need it
Right.
versus needing it and not having it.
Right. I will tell you as a buyer, we are seeing more and more vendors, manufacturers who are committing to 14-week lead times to help with that PIP problem. Where at one point it was like a 24-week lead time. So if you can get a manufacturer who can commit to a really fast turnaround, it's doable.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is beautiful.
It's good news, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this thing that you did where you took this hotel and you turned it around and you like quadrupled the revenue right off the bat. I wasn't sure if it was your hotel or just one that you had worked with. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had took over a hotel, the management for a hotel I'm down here in Kissimmee. It was a contract that I assumed. And when I got there, the property was just awful. There was no revenue management. The operations were in shambles. There was really no solid SOPs set in place. So the property was just failing all across the board. And then to make matters worse, the owners had installed a system that was designed for extended stay vacation rentals. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't designed for hotels. So you'll just get all these crazy headaches for no reason because the system wasn't designed for this type of operation.
Right.
And so I had to take that property that produced very little revenue, and I think at the time it had like a 2.8 review score on Google. It had a 4.6 review score on Booking, and I had to take that property and I turned it around. By the time I finished, it had a 7.9 review score on Booking and a 3.8 review score on Google.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
You
and,
should
and,
be
and
very
that
proud
happened
of
within
that.
5 months. Yeah, yeah,
And
that was an adventure, that's for sure.
well, if people want to reach out to you for podcasts like I did, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can email me at Bruce at hotelguestmanagement.com. You can also find me on Instagram, MJF Hotels. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Hotel Guest Management. And you can also find me on Facebook as well.
Or like I did on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Yeah, everyone finds me on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for having me.
It was great. Hold on.